Father Ron at Sacred Heart. I'm really grateful to be back this week with the Kovach family, with David and Pam and Hannah. And so welcome back, you guys.
Thank you.
And last week we had a delightful conversation about how 3 introverts have survived the pandemic, right? And the kinds of creativity that all of you have found in this, and the time spent at home. And I was wondering if we could just talk a bit about what is the role of prayer and faith and God in all of this? How do we use our time at home? How do we better ourselves by having an understanding that God is invested in all of this and not the cause of it? I think it's really important for us to articulate that in family life and for parish life, that that all of this is an awareness of God's presence. Do you guys have any thoughts about how your prayer, how your family prayer has evolved in this pandemic?
I think God is the center of our lives, of our family. Has always been so from the beginning. There are times when it can be incredibly difficult with so much going on, not just the virus, but the strains in our world with the fires and racial issues can be very heartbreaking and bring you to a sense of reality, and sometimes wondering, where is God in all of this? I think we try to stay grounded with our reading the daily readings, our prayer time at meals and at bedtime, reading reflections. We do a family book study for the 3 of us, as well as our daughter in Denver, and so each week we read a few chapters, and then we gather by Google Meets and we discuss our book. Right now we're reading Naked Now with Roar, and so that's been helpful. And I spend a lot of time in contemplative prayer. Sometimes I feel like I just don't know what to say, so it's best just to be quiet and to sit quietly and just acknowledge that God is with me and that I want God to be with me.
That's fantastic. I really, really appreciate that. And I think it's so important that we have an understanding that, first of all, that we're loved by God, that God is here regardless of what happens. And so, our prayer really is to open our lives to that possibility, and then to take into the world all of this stuff. And I know how difficult it is right now for people to pray. It's really tough, especially when we think God has caused it all, as some people would say, and that's just not true. And it's just the events of life, but it's pretty overwhelming. And I see how people have really stressed out about life. It's so full of anxiety, and how do we pray through that is really tough. Yeah.
I think something that we've talked about that I think is really important is to not be afraid to bring that to God and to bring that into your prayer life. That when you feel angry at someone else or yourself or at God, that you bring that to your prayer and you talk to God about that, and that you continue to have a relationship with God even if you're having feelings of anger or sadness or anxiety, just that you're acknowledging that and bringing that to God, and hopefully being patient to allow Him to transform that into something new.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like we're always struggling or wrestling with God. Who is God? Where do I see God in my life? And When we're doing that, we're always moving forward. If we don't do that, then we become stagnant and slide backwards. So I think in the pandemic, it's just made things different. What did I expect this to be like the next 6 months? And now, how do I feel about my neighbor when I go out? Where is that in our families? It provides that opportunity about our prayers a little bit different than what we may have anticipated previously. And it's been, it's a lot of growth in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, there's doubt and uncertainty as well. That as Hannah was saying, that just struggling, you bring that with you in prayer is comforting.
And being open to seeing God in unexpected ways, places you didn't expect.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I think, even all of the racial divides right now, I think it really struck us as people of faith and as Americans because we had enough time to be aware of it. I mean, part of the problem in life is that we want to fill every second with stuff, and we numb out to what's going on around us. This time, I think as Americans, we saw the racial division firsthand, and as like we had never seen it before, because there was that time. So the gift of the pandemic maybe is that it's causing us to be more reflective, right? It's causing us to sit with ourselves. And if we don't do that, we've really missed an opportunity, right?
I think that we oftentimes complain where we are, thinking that, the world's so bad and we're in a worse position than we've ever been in before. But the reality is that we're just stopping to actually see what is the reality of what we're in. Nothing's changed over the last 6 months, over the last few years. We just have a better vision of what's out in front of us, and sometimes that's pretty scary.
Yeah, I think that's a fabulous point, and one that is, I think, at the core of what's going to happen next. And I think, once we get through all of this stuff, the real work of it is then going to be what's going to happen. Happen next, and how are we going to pick up the pieces about what we've learned, and if we're not learning stuff in this, we've really missed out. I love the fact that as a family, and with your daughter who's in Denver, that you spend some time reading together and discussing books. That is fabulous. And that's probably, did you do that before?
We did.
Oh, you did? Okay, yeah.
We weren't as good about the progression we would make in the books. There might be a couple of weeks where we go by where we didn't do our study. Yeah. So a little bit more time, and we've been more consistent with that now.
That's great. If there is one thing that you would want to pass on to our parishioners in all three of our churches, and you guys have been here just starting your third year, about how to pray through this, what would you recommend?
Just be faithful and sticking with it, whatever it may be. It's just like coming back to church. When I thought we were coming back to church, I thought, the Gloria and the angels are going to sing and the sun's going to shine down in the Eucharist. And, the first week we came back, it was like, it was different.
Yeah.
It wasn't what I expected. Usually when you come to this parish, it's very alive and people are together, and it's the community that's important. And so all of a sudden that's gone. But now, after a few months of kind of being back, it's like, well, now you can see the beauty of the Mass again. It's very simple, but you can be present to that simplicity that's there and enjoy the difference. And so, your prayer may change, but just be persistent at it and recognize the beauty that's there.
That's great. That's really good.
I just wanted to add on to what Daddy said about being present to there, and I think that's part of our prayer is being present to God wherever we are and in places that we don't necessarily expect, and being open to that, and being present to all our feelings and allowing God to be a part of that, be a part of our lives.
The word that I was going to use too was being faithful,
Mhm.
being persistent, continuing to go through the motions sometimes, even when you don't feel like it. Because when you don't feel like it, sometimes that's when you're going to have your most profound moments.
Mhm.
You can find yourself in deep emotion and tears or in great joy and not even realize that it's coming.
That's great. I am so thrilled that you guys are here, and I'm really grateful that you decided to sit down with me today. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody. God bless. We'll see you next week.